Maharata Mueva Kira Shehasha Kusha Desata Drueshara Eka Uma Etreina Ekasha Maharata Mueva Kira Shehasha Kusha Desata Drueshara Eka Uma Etreina Ekasha Maharata Mueva Kira Shehasha Kusha Desata Drueshara Eka Uma Etreina Ekasha.
Our thoughts create our reality and the life experience we have on the inside and the outside of us. The following attitudes and responsibilities, when embodied and lived, will help to change our thought patterns, thoughts that we simply take for granted because they are part of the programming we currently carry. Changing the thought patterns is actually changing the programming in the personal template. 12 Attitudes of Mastery. Study the 12 attitudes of mastery, make an affirmation meditation out of them, and try to make them your way of life. 1. Love. Recognition of the truth of the all-oneness. 2. Grace. Allowing the all-oneness to be what it is regardless of whether it suits you. Living perpetual forgiveness. 3. Gratitude. Appreciating the all-oneness, knowing your aliveness. 4. Reverent respect. Acknowledging and giving to the all-oneness. 5. Responsibility. Co-creating with, serving and being able to respond to the all-oneness. 6. Trust, knowing the power and love of the all-oneness. 7. Accountability. Being in a state of truth with the all-oneness. 6. Impeccability. Upholding and protecting the all-oneness. 9. Mindfulness. Loving, nurturing, and being attentive to the all-oneness. 10. Fearlessness. Recognizing the eternal infinite nature and unconditional love of the all-oneness. 11. Engaged detachment. Permitting the all-oneness to be without assigning critique, condemnation, or value judgment, understanding the isness of and validating the all-oneness. 12. Joy. Choosing to be the embodied all-oneness. 12 Responsibilities of Mastery. Study the 12 responsibilities of mastery, make an affirmation meditation out of them, and try to make them your way of life. 1. Self-actualization. Freedom from the victim-victimizer blame game and willingness to be accountable for all perceivable manifestations as direct projections of intended learning from the personal consciousness, also known as DNA template. 2. Self-sovereignty. Freedom from the need for approval from, or the need to rebel against any form of external authority through understanding that you, as a manifestation of the God Spirit, have the ability to create personal freedom without violating the spiritual rights of others and without allowing others to violate your spiritual rights of being. 3. Self-containment. Taking personal responsibility for, and realizing that at all times, you are accountable for directing personal energies. There is no one or no thing that upsets you and thus justifies or validates any personal spiritual misuse of reaction, idea, intention, or action. It is you who upsets yourself by allowing the emotional body to follow misperceptions of the menial body that tell you that your power lies outside of yourself. At any given moment, you can choose which words, associations, and ideas you will use as the fillers through which you interpret an event. Upset, mad, hurt, or any other category of labeling, conscious or subconscious, are all mental body filters that direct emotional and physical body function. The self-contained individual recognizes that, at all times, the freedom of interpretation exists, and thus a negative experience and its associated disharmonic energies of upset feelings can only exist as a personal interpretation of events. Accepting any less responsibility for the direction of personal energies will place you directly into the victim-victimizer blame game, which can only take place among people who are placing their personal power and responsibility for manifestation onto externalized sources. Only you have the power to upset yourself. Regardless of what others say or do, you are fully entitled to your own interpretation. No one or thing has the power to upset you unless you give this power away. Self-containment comes when one recognizes that the direction of personal energies, whether physical, emotional, mental, which means ideas, beliefs, labels, interpretations, conscious or subconscious, is an attainable level of personal mastery and exists as an implied responsibility that comes with the gift of free will choice. The more responsible you become, the greater freedom and personal empowerment you will know. 4. Self-discipline. Accepting responsibility for directing personal energies toward, rather than in opposition to, the outcomes you desire to experience. The physical, mental, and emotional bodies have long been directed by the subconscious forces of the hidden shadow, creating within us urges, reactions, thoughts, impulses, perceptions, and feelings that often work counter to the life creations we desire to manifest. Part of spiritual mastery entails leaching ourselves to be consciously diligent in observing our own minds, emotions, and physical body talk, so that we may employ conscious redirection of subconscious shadow energies that run on autopilot. If we learn to catch ourselves when negative thought patterns or emotions run through us, we can use that moment of recognition to reclaim this errant energy and consciously use the power of affirmative attitude, remedial word choice, and direct energy. Redirection to direct opposing energies of the self into fulfillment of desired constructive, spiritually mature creations. It lacks self-discipline to become the lion tamer of the often roaring subconscious mind, but we do have the intrinsic power to help our subconscious shadow to evolve through loving but firm redirection into a cuddly lap cat that will gladly join us in our constructive co-creations. Self-discipline emerges when we consistently remind ourselves to employ the spiritually correct thought, action, or attitude, even if we don't feel like it when the shadow sneaks up from down under. The shadow parts of self surface so that we may see these parts of self come to the conscious mind for healing. Through this process, the conscious mind itself can learn greater attributes of mastery. 5. Self-love. Self-love. It is our own responsibility to love and nurture ourselves through the limitless gift of divine spirit that moves through us at every moment. Genuine love must come from within and can only be gained through genuine spiritual connection to the eternal God Self and its inherent connection to all creation. If we seek love on the outside in order to fulfill a personal loneliness or lack within, we enter relationships as energy vampires. In doing this, we are seeking a substitute for our personal God Source connection through tapping into the God Source embodied within other people or beings. This is not love. It is need. This implies the lack of something essential, which in turn implies a limited personal connection to God Source universal consciousness. Such lack cannot be filled by external love. It can only be filled by recognizing the God within you, and thus recognizing that you are a living embodiment of absolute love. Once this is recognized, you will have the greatest love of all, God love. And from this position of divine power, you can go into the world seeking those to whom you can give this love, rather than seeking those from whom you can get love. When love is approached through self-love, the motivation is to give joyfully, knowing that anything you might need can be made manifest through the love of the active God Source that you carry inside yourself. Self-love is a responsibility of spiritual maturity. 6. Spiritual integrity. It is our absolute responsibility to choose to act with spiritual integrity at all times. There is no excuse to knowingly violate the spiritual rights of others, regardless of how poorly they may react to you. Spiritual integrity requires that we begin to look at what we are really doing in the way we live our lives. Do our eating habits violate the plant, animal, or earth kingdoms? Do our choices of words and actions show respect for other people and other life forms? Do we play the survival of the fittest lack game to give ourselves an excuse for unethical behaviors in money matters, such as showing our silent rebellion against the government by trying to cheat on taxes, or by showing up a fellow employee at Woo to prove you are more worthy and thus more entitled to favor? Do you tell people what they want to hear in order to gain their approval and support, even if it is not fully true and does not reflect your personal needs or feelings? Do you try to get others to do your share as far as work or responsibilities? Do you use erroneous excuses such as race, gender, creed, academic or economic status to justify disrespectful, exploitative, or unkind treatment of others? Spiritual integrity requires that we take a good, hard, frequent look at how we conduct our lives, to face the areas of activity in which we are performing in less than spiritually congruent ways and to employ active commitment and discipline to bring these areas of our lives into spiritual integrity. One does not get through the gates of heaven, or anywhere else desirable, through using excuses for not employing genuine, not feigned, spiritual integrity. Cultivating spiritual integrity is a major responsibility on the path of spiritual mastery and, the way the universe works, you can't leave home without it. This means that there is a biological reality of spiritual integrity that manifests chemically within the DNA as a result of that state and focus of consciousness. If you do not possess a sufficient amount of spiritual integrity in your consciousness, neither will your DNA template. And though you might be able to pull the wool over the eyes of others, your own biology will eventually be your own taskmaster. Passage through any stargate requires a sufficient amount of chemically encoded spiritual integrity of consciousness. 7. Appreciation. Our present society continually teaches us to want more, need more, be more, do more, etc. We are constantly influenced to perceive what is lacking in order to motivate us to buy more, work more, pay more taxes, and be good little consumer sheep. Very rarely do we stop to think about all that we do have, beginning with the gift of life and mental free will choice. Through this disoriented, perceptual filter we can cultivate a full-blown mutation of mental consciousness. In this mutated consciousness, we begin to believe that we are entitled, that someone owes us, God, the universe, our parents, spouse, children, employer, government, etc. Once we fall into this you owe me mind trap, we set ourselves up for continuing self-created frustration, as we place unrealistic and untrue expectations upon life, others, and ourselves. We can also often get mighty angry or hurt when we find the universe doesn't conform to our imagined pictures. No one owes us anything. If we feel we are owed, then we are entertaining lack consciousness and a void within the self is being recognized. If we give to another in order to receive for ourselves, such as do banks, and often parents, spouses, or lovers, and the other does not pay back what we expected to receive, we may feel cheated, taken advantage or owed. Perhaps these situations emerge in our lives as lessons to teach us that giving should be done for the giving alone, and not for the expected return. If we give what we desire to give, for the joy of giving, we do not feel owed. If we live for the joy of living, without forcing our demands or expectations upon life, we will not feel that life has shortchanged us. It matters not what your neighbor possesses, because in comparing ourselves to each other to see how we measure up to each other we are, in effect, continually being distracted from seeing and utilizing the blessings that are our own. If we can work to cultivate the ability to appreciate even the smallest of gifts, blessings and gestures, we will begin to create a life that is at least half full instead of half empty. In terms of universal physics, what you focus your attention upon expands, what you resist persists, and what you do not give the energy of appreciation to will eventually demanifest right out of your experience. When you approach the world through the chosen filler of genuine giving, you are, in effect, being an electrical transmitter, sending energy out to the world around you. When you release electrical energy in this way, you become more magnetic, as the sending out of energy creates magnetic vortices within the diotic grid of your Kathara anatomy. The magnetized diotic points then draw in more universal energy supply, at a higher frequency and quality than the expressed energy, to refill the energy void created by the giving. When you approach the world with the attitude of getting, this natural physics process becomes inverted. The more you try to pull energy from the outside world, the more your energy becomes stuck in the dyadic grid as miasms. The miasms progressively reduce the quantity and lower the frequency of the natural energies you can internally draw from the universal supply. Giving, even in its simplest form of giving appreciation, keeps the natural energy flow moving. Whatever you give out will return to you amplified. This also works in reverse, however, and giving out a bad attitude of ego, arrogance, and garbage will cause more of the same to flow your way. Appreciate what you have. Love it, find perspectives through which the joy of it can be known, and know that in the act of genuine appreciation itself, you will set loose the powers of manifesting more of what you desire and less of the illusion of lack. The universe owes me mind trip is one of the most powerful self-sabotage games in the world. Trade it in for consistent appreciation and your world will progressively expand to hold the reality of the things you most desire. If you feel put upon by the world, and resentful for having your desires unmet, you owe yourself something. You also owe yourself a greater understanding of the nature of creation and better use of your personal power within the life creation game. Say thank you to the God Source more often, to help yourself remember what things you have to appreciate, and many more of the kind will be sent along your way. 8. Patience. God Source has its own schedule. We can either acknowledge this intrinsic reality of manifestation and choose to work co-creatively with the God Source within, trusting that together you and the universe will create the perfect divine right timing, and if that isn't right now, there is a very good reason for this, or you can let the ego self try to force its will upon the intrinsic nature of time. If time does not cooperate with your expectations, you can let that be okay, and trust in divine right timing, or you can progressively frustrate yourself with attachment to the artificial time of clocks, and choose to believe that you cannot have what you desire just because it does not appear when you demand. If we learn to relax, and realize that most things we desire we can indeed achieve in divine right time and order, we can learn to co-create with the consciousness of time. We will often then find that our lives will progressively conform to our wishes, especially when we ask nicely rather than demand, and also when we trust the universal God Source to do its part in our co-creation. Patience is a virtue that reflects our comprehension of the nature of universal order. 9. Kindness. Like respect, kindness is a birthright, but one that is quite often overlooked and misunderstood. When we approach the world through genuine kind-heartedness, sending love and respect to all of creation in honor of the God force that lives within all things, we are, again, transmitting electrical energy of a higher frequency that will follow the mechanics of universal physics to bring more of like-kind back to us through universal backflow. Kindness is a gift we must first give to ourselves in order to have it to give to others. Kindness implies being conscientious, concerned and caring toward the needs, feelings and desires of both the self and others, and to express this concern and caring in action, attitude and intention. Give to yourself random acts of kindness, then pass along the gift to all who cross your way. Try being kind to the mean and grouchy neighbor and you may help them rediscover the ability to smile. When we treat all things with kindness, we demonstrate that we acknowledge their intrinsic value as manifestations of God Source, and you will often find God Source lovingly returns the favor. 10. Conservation. Conservation is a form to respect and appreciation for God Source energy in all to its expressions, from conserving and protecting our natural resources, to being attentive to the needs of our bodies, to using the energies of our words and actions with gentle conservation by which we freely use what is needed, but not more. God Source continually recycles its energies for the rebirth of new expression. All is given freely, but nothing is valueless or wasted. Conservation demonstrates that we have respect and appreciation for the gift of creative energy that God Source has provided to us. As we learn to use this energy, in all its forms, with respect and clear intention, we will progressively fine-tune our ability to create what we desire and, in this process, assist all other beings to do the same. There is truth in the old saying, waste not, want not. If everything we perceive in our hologram of life is understood to be manifestations of God Source, we might all employ a bit more respect, appreciation and conservation toward the use and applications of the energies of the divine. 11. Cooperation and diplomacy. Existence is and will always be a co-creative endeavor. We must be willing to allow other beings the fulfillment of their needs and desires if we hope to have our fulfillment known. Creating win-win situations and creating with the intention of giving genuinely are natural ways of being. We might not always agree with the intended creations of others, but we all have a right to our points of view. Diplomacy can be a bridge between forces of opposition, through which effective actions or decisions can be reached to mutually support each perspective. We can learn to agree to disagree respectfully, so the spiritual art of cooperative co-creation can progressively evolve to higher levels of expression. 12. Sense. Learning to identify and appropriately apply both common sense and the uncommon sense of spiritual knowing will allow us to establish the greatest balance of energy expression within all aspects of our lives.